claim year 2022. So it is the percentage for financial year 2023 is red because there's an increase. And for us, this is an indication that, to be honest, we do not like too much. It is, for us, it's not possible that we test 30 or 40 or 50 transactions depending on the sampling methodology that you use and you do not find any error. Less cases for EAGF non-IACs compared to financial year 2022. We just want to mention that for EAGF non-IACs, still we had again 8 paying agencies where the de minimis rule was applied. The expenditure was less than 2% at fund level. Similar to EAGF IACs, we have EFRD IACs with 42 cases, 60% of total paying agencies, where the CB did not find an error. And we are talking about schemes, measures that are comparably more complex compared to EAGF IACs. And similar results as the previous year for EFRD non-IACs, 23 cases where the CB did not find any error. The second table refers to cases where we as DG Agri, as Directorate, needed to make some adjustments on your error evaluation. So there might be an error on the methodology on figures as such. There might be incorrect assessment according to our view regarding the treatment of an error. You have classified an error as formal, whether there is a financial impact, or you might have classified an error as known, where we do not agree, etc. In all cases, we have an increase compared to the previous year. However, the total impact of those adjustments were significantly less than the previous year. Here is a summary of the errors found by you. For IACs, again, we have some over-declarations on areas. So there were some measurements that were not accurate. Again, issues regarding cross-compliance and good agricultural and environmental conditions and eligibility of commitments. As regards the non-IACs, where the complexity is higher, the frequency of errors related mostly to public procurement rules, to reasonableness of cost checks, and eligibility of expenditure. I would like just to give a summary of the results of the exercise. For both non-IACs populations, DG Agri will decide that 4 audits will be opened on the basis of the certification body's findings. Similar to until last year, you were receiving this information with a 30th of April letter. As of this year, we decided that 30th of April letter refers only to audit objective 1 accreditation criteria and irregularities. So our colleagues from the conformity units assesses the information, and they have decided to open 4 inquiries for non-IACs populations, and in other 5 cases, the certification body's findings will be followed up through missions that will be carried out by the respective unit. As regards IACs, there will be 9 inquiries. 4 of them related to the errors reported by the certification body. 1 case is an administrative error, and 3 other cases will be based on the findings of the substantive testing. 5 more cases, we will have an inquiry in order to follow up previous DG Agri findings which were not addressed by the certification body. The certification body did not provide information as regards the financial impact. And another 4 cases where the CB's findings will be followed up on missions that will be carried out next semester. We continue now with the error evaluation. We have here our first example. We extract the information from the certification body's report. The initial sample of 30 items. We are talking about, here is the FRD non-Ix population. We decided to include this example because still for financial year 2024, there will be significant expenditure under the old rules of Objective 4. So we decided to refresh your memory. The initial sample of 30 items split it in 5 periods, didn't have any transaction subject to on the spot by the paying agency. The certification board decided to select an additional sample. No stratification have been applied before the sample selection. And the certification body found 100% error from the additional sample. The data are from the compliance rate table in chapter, it was 11 now, it's 16, I think. The projected compliance rate was calculated at 200,000 euros, with the upper projected compliance rate being at 428,000 euros. The sampling interval according to the CB, then the info that is on the IRR table was 14.9 million, based on the total expenditure divided to the total sample. So we expect if we have an 100% error with the MUS methodology, monetary unit sampling, we expect that the interval is the actual project compliance rate. However, it was not the case. We recalculated the projected compliance rate by using a weighted average interval per period, as this was the methodology applied by the CB. So what we did, we take the initial sample for the first period and the additional sample for the first period. We grouped them together. We divided the expenditure of the first period with the total aggregate sample per period, and we have a weighted average interval per period. And this was 15.8 million for the first period where the error was found. So the projected compliance rate increased from 210,000 to 15.8 million. Why the error was so limited? Because the certification body decided to apply the interval on the population only of on the spots. We have several times addressed this issue. So we repeat that when an additional sample is necessary to be selected from the transaction subject on the spot, the initial and additional sample should be integrated. And on the basis of the weighted average interval, we calculated the threshold of the high value items or not. And for more details, you can see the presentation that we had already in 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, November 2020, about the gradation of samples. Evaluation with stratification is to be used when the total population is split into 2 non-overlapping sets. So, if a transaction is within the first sample, with the total expenditure, and for any reason because of its value, is not selected, and then we take a subpopulation of this and we reselect, then we cannot consider that this transaction can be evaluated with a smaller interval of the, let's say, subpopulation of transactions subject to on the spot. And because this, why is that? Because such transactions have two possibilities to be selected, one on the initial sample and one on the second. If we want really to evaluate, we need to go to combined probabilities, and this is very, very difficult. So the most easy way is to have an integrated sample. The only way that you can evaluate transactions subject to on the spot with a different interval is to predetermine the two strata before the selection. And for this, we had provided document, it's available in Circa, how to apply this methodology. And of course, we had a presentation 2021 as regards the alternative subject techniques for non-IX populations, where we just to summarize, we propose that you predefine the number of transactions that you need for on the spots before the selection, and then you isolate this population. Then you can do it. But when transactions have two possibilities to be selected, then it is, for us, it's a rule, a weighted average interval, an integrated interval will be used for the error evaluation. Our second example referred to EAGF Ajax, and we were hesitating to use it at the beginning because there is no old objective for non-Ajax populations anymore as of claim year 2023. Okay, we have some EFRD Ajax with multi-annual commitments from previous years, but mainly Ajax populations go to odd objective 2 as of financial year 2024. But we believe that this example is still applicable also in the future. We extract from the report that the paying agency carried out checks by monitoring, similar to AMS, according to Article 40 of, as adjusted, of Regulation 809 as adjusted. All of the measures are error-related, so all measures are under checks by monitoring, and there was no need for certification. And in accordance with the Section 3.81 of Annex 2 of Guideline for Financial Year 2023, the certification body uses the option to perform the substantive testing through the sample used for quality purposes of checks by monitoring by the paying agency. The CB, again from the report, the certification body carried out the test of the non-monitorable elements on the basis of a single sample for both EAGF and FRD. Minimum 30 elements, 30 items, let's say, per fund, per EAGF and FRD, using a simple random sampling selection. And the sample was selected from the PA's random on-the-spot controls for the non-monitorable elements. And for the error calculation, the CB took into account both error resulting from the re-verification of the non-monitorable and errors from quality on-the-spot controls. This is the table that has been provided by the CB. Only one small finding. At the level of the PA's random on the spot, it was only 47 euros. Projected, the total expenditure was like 10,000 euros. We recalculated, we ended up with an amount approximately to 2 million euros at PIR. And the reason is that if the CB decides to carry out the substantive testing through the PA's quality assessment, the minimum, the base of the error that the CB should report is the error, the results of the QA. And this is something that we have already clarified 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, in November 2021, when we provide this option to perform the substantive testing for Ajax populations through the QA. And since for Objective 2, as of this year or next year, we ask you to assess the governance systems through the Ajax QA, we believe that the example is still relevant. Since we ask you to calculate the total misstatement, let's say, take into consideration the residual risk from the PA's results. We have received several questions how to calculate how to quantify in euros the errors provided in the QA. We have provided some replies on the question and answer document of the GREX meetings. But if you still have some questions, please feel free to send to us and we will try to address them. We understand that the QA has errors reported in hectares, but in any case, we strongly believe that all errors can be quantified in euros using either the weighted average of entitlements for cases where entitlements are applicable, or for other schemes where the area, the amount paid or amount determined is on the basis of an aid rate per hectare, then it's very easy to quantify also the differences in euros. Still, we have some. We go again back to EFRD non-Ajax. Still, we have some problems with member states that did not made some mistakes on the calculation of the projected compliance rate of EFRD non-Ajax when the member state used the provisions of Regulation 1867 of 2019 as regarding the financing of technical assistance with a flat rate. So, if a flat rate is used, first of all, the expenditure of technical assistance, and there's a mistake, it's not measure 22, it's measure 20, should be excluded from the population for the test. Then we calculate our error from the testing, and then we need to adjust. The adjustment you need to take also into consideration the errors that you have found on Ajax, EFRD Ajax population, because measure 20 is applicable to, the flat rate applies to the total expenditure of EFRD. A template for details for this has been provided also on our presentation 2020. Now we move forward to the second part of our examples, the treatment of errors. And we extract from the report the CB did the reperformance, and they found that the paying agency has wrongly authorized for payment an area of 80.96 hectares, in which the agro-environmental commitment was not applied with as follows. There is a parcel of 11 hectares. This requirement for the biomass incorporation for measure 10 has not been complied with agro-environmental and climate package 4. These are the national rules of the member state. The same for a second parcel. It was not possible to verify the consistency between the material sown and the sown plants, or whether the parcel were entirely sown with the plants specified in the average agro specification. So the certification body calculated the error, and they treat it as unknown with an impact of 77,000 euros. So we sent a clarification request to the member state. We asked them to provide more details on the area determined following their control, and the amount determined on the base of the support error rate. So practically what does it mean this is that part of the reduction is effectively based on the actual error and on the reduced area. And part of it, of the error, was an additional amount related to penalties. So the certification body replied that they did not perform a full audit of all parcels at holding level. They limit the testing on a number of parcels, but they extrapolated the results, which were okay. So they found that the actual error was 30.8% at holding level. But in accordance to the national legislation, if there is an error between 30 and 60%, the total reduction at payment level is 75%. So they consider that this is a sanction, this is a penalty, and they treated the whole error as known error, 77.5 thousand euros. So we said, no, it's not correct. We believe that there is a part of the 77,000 that it is an error that can occur to other transactions, maybe not 30%, 5%, 10%, or 50%, whatever it is. And this part, which is proportional, should be the part of the error that should be extrapolated. And the additional part is the remaining part, is the part that should be extrapolated. So the actual difference in hectares is considered as random error. The remaining part of the non-proportional reduction is considered as known. The difference with the difference is the 298 hectares, which is the extrapolated result of the CB's testing, multiplied with the aid rate per hectare. So 38,000 euros is an amount to be extrapolated. The remaining amount, 39,000 euros, is the amount that can be considered as known error because it relates to, it is linked directly to sanctions and penalties. So we recalculated, here is the results. We reduced, of course, the value of known errors because the CB had 77,000. Okay, here it says 112 for the column of the CB's evaluation because there was also some other known errors. We reduced it proportionally, accordingly, but the amount of 38,000 euros out of the 77 was used for the extrapolation of results. So we ended up with a double peer and almost double upper project compliance rate compared to the calculation provided by the certification body. Now I would like to go to another element that it is crucial for us. That's why we have amended Guideline 2 for financial year 2024. And we have created a relevant annex, Annex 5. It's on the substantive testing of financial instruments of the previous programming period. What our colleagues from the conformity units have seen is that very few of the certification body tested as regards the legality, regularity of expenditure subject to of financial instruments performed such testing. Most of the CBs limited their work under Objective 2, and they reported the results in Chapter 2.5.7. The substantive testing of for legality, regularity purposes of the financial instruments is a bit complex. In most of the cases, following the normal sampling methodology, none of you or very few of you had it on their sample. And in case of selection, the testing again was limited only to the payment claim itself and did not include all the transactions related, the sub-transactions at beneficiary level that related to the transactions report. This is a slide that we have used also last semester when we tried to explain how the testing of financial instruments is carried out. When we receive, when the beneficiaries receive the first payments, 25%, it's in advance. There is no legality irregularity apart from the fact that the beneficiaries will be eligible. But in order to receive the second installment, second tranche, we need to make sure that at least 60% of the amount already paid in the previous installment is eligible. So actually we need to verify that 15% of the total expenditure is eligible. We continue with the third tranche where we need to verify that the 85 of the previous two periods, 25 plus 25%, 50% is eligible. And we receive the fourth and last installment only when 85% of the previous 75% of expenditure, 3 times multiplied with 25%, is eligible. And of course, at the closure, we need to get some assurance also for the remaining part, which is the last tranche, 25%, plus the amount, plus the percentage that we haven't tested during the 3 previous periods. So I come back. We have included in Annex 5 for Guidelines 2024. Annex 5 is designed in line with the framework of the methodology for testing the legality and regularity of financial instruments, a guideline that has been created by DG Regio, where we need the compliance testing. The scope is to include also checks at financial intermediaries, and includes also substantive testing. Normally, since in most of the cases, in most of the member states, the financial instrument payments is one payment, normally it should be selected, but then on your sample for EFRD, non-IACS, but then you will need to do a 2-stage sample and to have a sufficient number of intermediaries or beneficiaries in order to give an opinion on the legality regularity of expenditure of financial instruments. And your population should be not only the payment, it should be all the payments that leads to the 25 or the 50 or the 75. So if we go back to the previous slide, and we are on the first installment, for example, we need to have a population, a database, not only of the third installment. We need to have the database of the first, the second, and the third together. Don't know if that's clear, but I do suggest that you go through the methodology, the Annex 5, and also the methodology designed by DG Regio. And if you have any questions, please come back to us, because testing of expenditure subject to financial instruments is requested for financial year 2024. And the next one. And as my head of unit Katia mentions, it's what we also need to get assurance is for the outstanding balance of the financial instruments. And now we will close the presentation with the recommendations that we have for Audit Objective 4 and Audit Objective 2 from Unit H4 on the sampling, on the design of the audit strategy, but also from our colleagues from the conformity units. The first one, you know it very well. It's late on-the-spot re-verifications. It was for Audit Objective 2. We decided to have it again one more time because if you decide to do on-the-spot controls for claim year 2023, it's up to you. It's not mandatory anymore under Audit Objective 2, but if this is your strategy, you need to carry them out on time. So that in order to ensure that all eligibility checks performed by the paying agency, either this is for animals, either this is for conditionality, either this is for the QA of the Ajax QA, in order to make sure that all eligibility checks can be re-verified by the certification body. For claim year 2022, we had more than 20 cases out of 70, which is a significant percentage of late on the spots. And when we say late, we are talking about 6 months, at least 6 months later. It is highlighted, it's bold. The recommendation is still applicable under Objective 2. Again, for the non-IX recommendation of Objective 4, but this also stands for any kind of audit objective in the future, inadequate follow-up of ongoing inquiries. There is a specific chapter in the report where we request from the CB two things: to report to us what they have done on recommendations that we issue to them directly for the certification bodies, but what the certification body has to also report to us as regards the recommendations that DG Agri issues for the paying agency. And under the single audit approach, this is, you understand that this is a basic, really element of the work. It becomes much more crucial in order to get the assurance that the governance systems function properly. Recommendation for EGF non-IX for the review of the potential irregularities detected within the scrutiny of transactions for the last ended scrutiny period. The certification body is recommended to focus on the potential irregularities reported to the paying agency by other authorities, as the annual report might not have been communicated to DG Agri. And there is an explanation on the template of our guideline for this. And, no, it's okay, thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. We had, again, for non-IX, it's still under Objective 4, but still applicable for Audit Objective 2. DG Agri recommends to paying agents to implement an adequate procedure ensuring the valuation of the eligibles of cost, regardless the amount of the expenditure involved. So we found that there was no justification for simplified cost options or, let's say, previous recommendations from us related to eligibles of cost have not been addressed by the certification body. Another one recommendation for non-IX is that it is also recommended by us that the CBs ensure that all future documents adhere to the prescribed templates and accurately reflect all necessary details. We have this recommendation for several years. There are certain certification bodies that don't know the reason, do not include all the necessary information to the IRR tables, or the information on those tables compared to the annexes cannot be reconciled. This, for us, it's very, very time-consuming in order to assess, and leads also to some burden for you, because we then address questions, and then we need to get back the replies in order to ensure that everything is covered. So please be careful when filling in the tables, that you fill in all the information, and the information on those tables coherent with the information that you provide in the relevant annexes of substantive testing. We found this case, this recommendation is applicable to 3 or 4 members PCBs. There, they decided that a measure with a limit expenditure close to 1% was excluded from testing, despite the fact that the rules for the de minimis rules, which are applicable at population level, EFRD-NX or EAGF-NX, were not applicable. So we had this, I don't know how to say this, splitting the population in more measures. But if we do so, then it is always the case that a measure or a sub-measure or something becomes de minimis. The de minimis rules are very clear. We need 2% at population level. So if there's more than 2%, testing should be carried out, and the testing should include all expenditure of the population. Now, recommendations for Objective 2. You understand that for the first year, 2023, we have a very limited number of recommendations. Mainly, the expenditure was related to EAGF-NX apiculture intervention. So, we had one case where the certification body explained that apiculture represents a very small part of EAGF, and on the basis of its professional judgment, this is not representative. And I'm wondering, representative of what? The apiculture is apiculture, and the apiculture testing is representative to the apiculture as such, not, of course, to the AGF. But if only apiculture is subject to our Objective 2, then we test apiculture. Next year that we have more measures, more and more measures under Objective 2, we expect that the testing will cover the most important or all basic unit requirements, and of course the most important or all interventions. For this we have discussed thoroughly with you, and we will discuss also tomorrow on the workshop 1 as regards rotation of pools or interventions. But this is not the case here. When apiculture is subject to Objective 2, then we have to do the testing for apiculture. And another recommendation was that Objective 2 covers interventions that are or will be in the future under the CAP strategic plan. School scheme will remain in the future outside the CAP strategic plan. So there is no Objective 2 for school scheme. I hope that this is clear. And school schemes should be tested under Objective 4 also in the future. Will continue to be subject to Objective 4 in the future. And this is also for now, it's for EFRD non-AX. There we realized that there was expenditure declared by the member state for some intervention for EFRD. Those were advance payments. And since they were advances, there was no testing. We can understand that for Objective 3, because there are no outputs, but not for Objective 2. Even if there is no actual expenditure, there are basic requirements, and of course there are very well represented in our matrices that relate to the approval of the beneficiary, to the approval of the project, with the scoring, the grading of all the projects, etc., etc. So even if there is expenditure only related to advances, we expect that the certification body test the systems that are applicable to the approval of the beneficiary. And this was the last one. Thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if you have any questions on the topics that we have covered.
Thank you, Adonis. So let me open the floor for questions. I really encourage you to take the floor and ask questions, because these are recurring issues that we highlight to you year after year. So if something is not clear, this is a good time to clarify or to ask follow-up questions. Austria, thank you.
Can
I ask a question which has to do with 24 and Objective 4, rationalization of the sampling? I have a question that I did ask in writing. I just wanted to have confirmation of something. Here we have the possibility of simplification, option 1. So that you don't put the AGF and so on all together as one thing, depending on the number of transactions. And that's possible to stagger it per 20. And there has to be at least 10 on the spot checks carried out. So if I have sampling on the basis of payments, and I didn't have any on-the-spot checks, would 50 be the correct figure, or would 40 be enough? Now, if you look at all the different basic systems separately, it says that you can use a simplified sampling. So you could just use the number of transactions. That's where I understand the addition in the new guidelines. This applies for small units. So if I just have a small population then the error rate would be 10 to 15. So if I've got 20,000 or 30,000 transactions and I apply 10 to 15, 10 to 25% sampling, is that correct? And then I'd also have to have 10 on-the-spot checks. Is that a correct assumption? Or have I misunderstood something? Thank you.
Thank you. So, Antonis, would you like to clarify?
Yes, indeed. We received your question. You will receive also your answer in details through our question and answer document. In order to clarify, because we have also received a few questions on that, you have two options. Either traditionally, what you keep separate EAGF and TFRD. Then we need a minimum 30 items, and instead of additional 30, we need additional 10. If your sample, if your population is small, rules for small populations are still applicable. Okay? Either at the level of the total sample of transactions, either at the level of transactions subject to on-the-spot control. We have given you the option to merge together similar populations, and this is mostly applicable to non-Ajax, apart from some member states who have EAGF Ajax and EFRD Ajax under Objective 4 also in the future, like Greece, that they have cotton still under Objective 4. There, so let's talk about the majority of the member states. There you have the option to group together EAGF non-Ajax and EFRD non-Ajax. You apply stratification, minimum 20 per stratum, and if within the sample of 20 you don't have 10 transactions subject to on the spot, you need to increase in order to reach the 10. If you have already 3, you increase to extra 7. If one of the two strata is considered also again a small population at the level of population in terms of number of transactions, or for the additional sample at the level of transactions subject to on the spot, again, rules for small populations are applicable. So, to the extreme scenario, it might be the case that you will use this option, and for EFRD you will have 20 plus 5, where you will have in total 10 on the spots, and for EHF, due to the fact that you have a limited number of transactions, only, for example, for some producer organizations, you will have only 5 to 6 or 7 transactions. And you will have 25 plus 7 in total.
Ich muss jetzt noch einmal zur zweiten Option eine Frage.
I need to ask a question about the second option. So I need a minimum of 30 samples from the payments. Is that right? Or is that together with the on-the-spot checks? I need 10 on-the-spot checks, even if I have 20,000 or 30,000 transactions. I need a minimum of 30 samples. Or not?
Helga, are you going to combine EAGF and FRD together or not? No. So you will need 30 plus a number in order to reach 10. So it might be 34, it might be 35, it might be 37. Maximum 40.
Excellent. Is there any other questions from Austria? Okay, maybe you can put down your... Okay. Other questions? Croatia.
Hello, everybody. Our question does not consider today's presentations, but we struggle a little bit with the sustainability or durability of projects in Rural Development Fund, Audit Objective 2. So, as we compare the BURs and requirements for sectoral interventions for EAGF, we find not applicable in Rural Development Fund. So we are interested how to ensure and whether there are any requirements regarding this, for example, in investment measures, how we will assure that they last, that financing investments lasts for for some time, as we had for ex post controls previously. So maybe because we were looking and during the learning network in regulation and everywhere to find, but we are not sure what to do with that.
Well, I mean, you can also apply common sense when you evaluate the investment measures, whether this is a durable investment or it's an investment that has a finite term. I think this is, we should be coming back on this maybe with a little bit more guidance, and we will reply in writing in the Q&As, because not everybody that is going to follow it up on our side is here right now. Yes. So we will come back with some guidance on that in writing, and what we might expect in terms of ex post controls, because as you may already know, our conformity procedures that we launch can go back up to 24 months, but we will come back with a written answer on that. Okay?
Okay, thank you. We prepared some questions, but we didn't have time to send to you, so it's about the sustainability, durability. Some questions with regard to Ajax for new programming, and some questions from the paying agency that they're also interested in. So I hope to send it very soon so that you can join it, yes.
I really encourage you, if you have written questions that you haven't already sent to us on the items covered, especially on the items covered by this expert group, to send them to us at the latest on Wednesday morning, during the day when you go back, so that we can take them into account, because we will try to get the document out, of course, before the summer holidays. Okay? Okay, thanks. Any more questions?
Okay.
Austria again.
Microphone, please, for Austria. I've got one question on the SFC tables that are to be provided in October as to the error rates. That's for 2022. What we had was the end of April letter saying that this was to be uploaded by late October. However, I didn't find an SFC spreadsheet. I sent it in by email instead. And this year again, there are errors that have to be corrected, and we need to notify you about that. I wondered about the procedure and the situation for the member states. Will this table, this spreadsheet, be visible in late October? I didn't have any way of uploading it last October. I had to send it in by email, the update. That was on the recovery procedures last October.
Okay, So just to understand that we didn't get lost in the interpretation, your question is how you will reply to us, or your question is you cannot find your SFC table?
My question is how to reply via SFC table, because I did not have the opportunity. I didn't see any table in the SFC, and for the financial year 2022, I could not reply it via SFC, the recovery procedures.
So for this year, let me start from this year while my colleague checks whether this was applicable to your paying agency for 2022. So for financial year 2023, there were only 18 paying agencies concerned by these types of errors, for which there was an SFC table uploaded. And in order to make sure that you've seen it, although I expect that SFC, the system itself, sends you an alert when something is uploaded. But in any case, in order to make sure that you didn't miss it, we sent an email at technical level. So we sent you an email to let you know that your SFC table is available. So the future is SFC. I mean, we would like to communicate it to you via SFC, and we would like to receive the replies from you, which is your question, in SFC. So we uploaded this table. It's an Excel table with some columns. We would like to see your follow-up by filling in those columns. And maybe we can reply on the year before. So Vincent will.
So for financial year 2022, we uploaded the table for Austria, or for all of them, in SFC, but it's in the module EC Audit Report of SFC 2014. So normally the person who is in charge of that, who is in charge of the reception of the document, receives a notification. I think there was a follow-up after October by my colleagues to make a point on that. But well, what I can just say is, if you had difficulties to access it, maybe you could ask your authorities in charge of SFC 2014, or your contact detail in Austria to grant you reading access or an access to this module.
But this year it was not mentioned in our end of April letter, so probably we have not to do it via SFC.
So if it was not mentioned in your 30th of April letter, it means you didn't have this type of errors. So generally small errors, non-systemic, I'm just explaining what these types of errors are. Small errors, non-systemic, that you have accepted as paying agency, and the paying agency is starting the recovery procedure. So if you didn't have this type of errors, it wouldn't be mentioned in your 30th of April letter. There was only one exception. There was, for one member state, that there was something identified a bit later on by our conformity units for the conformity part of the audit. And although it was not mentioned in the 30th of April letter, we took contact with the member states, and we uploaded a table in SFC because it was much more efficient than launching a conformity inquiry. But as a general rule, except this one member state exception, if you didn't have this paragraph in your 30th of April letter notifying you that by the end of May there would be a table uploaded in SFC, then it means you are not concerned by these types of errors. Okay, I'm glad. I hope it's clear. Other questions? Germany, please.
Thank you. I've got two questions. First one, you didn't mention some recommendations on audit objective 3. Will that be subject of tomorrow's meeting? And the second question concerning the closure of 23 audit objective 2 and 3. How will the procedure be? Will it be comparable to what was mentioned to audit objective 4, inquiries, audit missions, and technical meetings? That would be interesting for us. Thank you.
Indeed, for audit objective 3, the annual performance reporting and the annual performance clearance, there are sessions foreseen in this expert group meeting tomorrow, in fact, as you correctly identified. And there is also a workshop 3, where all of this will be communicated. And as I covered in my presentation at the beginning this morning on the feedback of this year's clearance exercise, for the conformity issues, so that means issues relating to legality and regularity of expenditure, and the issues relating to the governance system, so audit objective 2. There will be a separate communication, because this, as I was trying to explain in the morning, they are not bound by the legal deadline of 30th of April. So we decided to not put them in our 30th of April letters this year, and give ourselves a little bit of time to collaborate with you, have additional technical meetings if necessary, do a better analysis, rather than launching in a rush a lot of conformity inquiries to follow those issues, which in the end may not have all been necessary. So we are still in the process of analyzing this. My colleagues in the conformity units, H2 and H3 of the Directorate. So there will be a separate follow-up of those issues, which will, of course, communicate to you once clarified if there is an issue. Because, I mean, what I'm trying to, maybe I didn't say explicitly, the conformity procedure is a heavy procedure to follow. It's heavy both for you and for us. So we try to be efficient. One way was to follow some errors through the SFC tables, small errors that you're already initiating recoveries. Another thing, we wanted to give more time to analyze the issues identified that are not legally bound by the 30th of April letter deadline and the annual clearance of accounts decisions, in order to launch conformity inquiries only where it's necessary. Also, let's not forget that we also do a lot of missions in this directorate. So my colleagues may already have either an ongoing inquiry or planning a mission to the member state where they can follow these issues up, or could open desk audits if nothing else is applicable to follow. So I hope this answers your question. Anybody else? Sweden.
Thank you. Just a request for a clarification regarding the sample, the amount with regards to the compliant testing in audit objective 4. We use the double purpose for that. So just if you could clarify how to perform the sample. Thank you.
If for the purposes of audit objective 4 you still use very well dual purpose testing, then I assume that the sample of the substantive testing is used for the purpose of compliance. So for compliance testing, there is no value of population. You check the same transactions that you have on your substantive testing, but from a different point of view. You want to see the frequency of the failure of controls, not the actual substance and the impact, the financial impact, in order to calculate a precise incompliance rate. The only difference is how the system functions, and has nothing to do with the gravity, let's say, of the findings. I think it's exactly the same approach that you're using for several years. There's no value of population. The compliance testing is the sample size is calculated on the basis of the frequency of control, especially if we talk about manual controls, and that's it.
Great, thank you.
If I could follow up, so just to clarify, like how many? Like if you choose to use option number 2 for that, do you know? Thank you.
The minimum sample size for controls applicable daily is, according to the rules that have not changed, is 25.
Still 25.
Thank you. All? Or which?
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
With this, thank you for your questions. I propose that we continue with the last presentation.